Hey, what's up, fellow doomers? Hello, it's me. Long time no see. I am away. I'm back from my hiatus. I have came down from the mountaintop to give you a message. And that message is how much I fucking love books! Everyone who knows me knows this about me. I'm a big book guy. Books! They call me Banterdragon 107. They call me the book connoisseur. I live on 32 Book Road. My house is made of books. Here's a model recreation of my house. It's just a fucking book. I live under books. So I decided what better way to end my hiatus than to come to you with a bi-weekly show called Books. I haven't came up with a title. I'll leave a recommended title for this show in the comment section below. Basically, I'm going to be reading 2 books a week, and I'm going to be reviewing them on camera. And that's it. Yeah. I am full of ideas. I haven't produced anything for about 3 years, and this is what I come back with, so. But what the fuck? The first book I will be reviewing is, drumroll please, Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche, of course, being famous as the world's first atheist, the inventor of the fedora. He was 5'6", very sickly, had multiple diseases. I heard he had syphilis that he contracted from prostitutes.
That's no good.
Friedrich Nietzsche was a famous professor during the 1800s in Prussia, which is, it was what Russia used to be called when it was going through trans-state. Pink Russia, you know, is that funny? Friedrich Nietzsche spent his early life, 24 years old, teaching Christianity in college in Prussia. He didn't enjoy doing it anymore because, like I said, world's first ever atheist. There wasn't one before him. Basically, he didn't like having to do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag every morning. Specifically, he had a problem with the part where it says one nation under God. So he fucked that off, and he decided to go to the mountains after contracting syphilis to write Thus Spoke Zarathustra in 10 days. 10 days, this man, and he wrote a book that is about 207 pages long. Took me like a week to read this as well. So basically, what have you done these last 10 days? Thus Spoke Zarathustra is essentially like self-insert fan fiction. It is a story about a man who also flees to the mountains for 10 years, and he becomes like, whoa, the world's most like powerful man. Oh, I burped in the middle of. Now, like I said, Nietzsche was an extremely sickly little boy. He had lots of diseases. He was like always throwing up. When he wrote the self-insert fanfiction, he imagined like an idealized version of himself and his philosophy, and that is the character of Zarathustra. Basically, Zarathustra represents like strength, vitality, which are all like, they're all representative of the Superman. I'm not talking Superman like a little bit of DC Comics. I'm talking Superman as in the original Übermensch. Now, anyone who's a fan of Adolf Hitler, such as myself, might remember the Übermensch concept from a little anime I like to call the Third Reich. The Third Reich were obsessed with this idea of the strong, pure man, the man with the biggest biceps, blonde. So you had the Übermensch and you had the Untermensch. So like the Übermensch being the Aryans and the Untermensch being the everyone else except the Japanese. Honorary. Okay, right. No, that it. But just because that's how the National Socialists interpreted Nietzsche's ideas didn't mean that that's what Nietzsche meant. To him, the Überman was someone who was like self-disciplined. He was self-driven, and he was extremely knowledgeable, and basically he was independent as well. Whereas the Untermensch was somebody who was completely obsessed with the group. Ironic. He'd be someone who was not self-disciplined at all. He would be someone that was not self-propelling. He did not have a meaning for living, and he'd just be dumb as fuck. He'd just be so fucking stupid. It just drives me up the wall how fucking stupid Untermensch. Susan Wojcicki, let me just say, I love the people of Israel from the bottom of my heart. I'm just interpreting philosophy, Susan. I'm just interpreting a little philosophy. I just recently bought some more books by Nietzsche that I haven't read yet. In fact, this book is the only book by Nietzsche I have read fully. So, don't expect me to be a Nietzsche understander or anything like that. But at the same time, I feel like I am the only person who truly understands Nietzsche. Let me just break it down for you. Nietzsche had a lot of diseases. He was very sick. He had a lot of mental illness, and he never had a girlfriend. So for myself, I see a lot of myself in Nietzsche. I actually only got into Nietzsche. I actually only got that book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, because my a good friend of mine told me that something I was working on, a project that's upcoming, shares a lot in common with Nietzsche's thought process.
Oh, nigga, you gay!
I'm gonna get into the book now. Thus Spoke Zarathustra starts with Zarathustra, who is a man. He goes up into the mountains and lives there for 10 years. And he lives alone with nothing but 2 animals, a eagle and a snake. In the mountain for 10 years, Zarathustra gains a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom. Until after 10 years, he decides that he's going to descend down the mountain to educate the populace into the knowledge that he had gained during his time up there. What will immediately strike the reader about Thus Spoke Zarathustra is how everything is written in like the opposite of prose. Everything is a metaphor. There is not one straightforward thing in this fucking book. Why did Zarathustra go down the mountain? It is because he was inspired by the sun, but he obviously wasn't. He was inspired by what the sun represents, the sun being a representation of the Superman, which is his concept of the ideal. Everything in this book is a metaphor. The moon is a metaphor for people who go through life just observing things and giving nothing. Zarathustra's enemy, the spirit of gravity, who is a dwarf, is a representation, I think, for Nietzsche's nihilism and depression. Height itself, the latitude of the world, is also representation of meaning and nihilism. It is it's a difficult read. On top of that, the book is written in the style of the Old Testament and old stories, which just make the English is so archaic. I mean, I know it was written like centuries ago, but like even I've read books from like this sort of period before, and they've been a lot more straightforward. Whereas this stuff, there's like it's a lot of these and thous. It's all written like poetry. It's very difficult. And why did Nietzsche write this book like this? Well, I'm glad you asked. The reason he wrote this book like this is explained in the next chapter when Zarathustra goes down to the town. He goes to the town and he starts telling the people about his message, and the people, they laugh at him. They think he's like some sort of virgin. They think he's like some sort of like syphilis-ridden, disgusting human being that, runs away off into the mountains. They think he's like an abject failure who's never had a wife or something, when in reality, he's fucking Zarathustra. Nietzsche believed that the majority of people are really fucking dumb. He believes that people are separated into 2 castes. So you have masters and you have slaves. And the majority of people, they're just slaves. Like, if you try to explain your message, if you try to dumb down your message to the level of, to a level where the majority of people could understand it, it would be like corrupted, and it'd be shit, and it wouldn't be like worth your time. The only message that is worth saying is a one that would appeal to people who are willing to put in the work to understand your work. So i.e. the masters. That's why the book is written in such like a weird, archaic way, because he didn't want stupid people reading it. Nietzsche was not very popular when he was living. He lived by his principles. God, I can't stop. Jesus Christ. Books! What was Zarathustra or Nietzsche telling the crowd, or the people who read this book, that they rejected? What message was he giving them? The message was of his fundamental concept of the Superman, and its opposite, which is the Underman. Now, like I said, Nietzsche was a pretty big hardcore atheist. There's like a story in his autobiography where he's walking down the streets of Prussia, and a little German kid says, "Oh, Gunterschand, God bless you, God bless you." And he turns around and he's like, "What? Why don't you say Thor bless you. Because we used to believe in the Thor. And then he just ran down the street crying. That's the sort of man Nietzsche was. He was, like I said, first atheist. Tip my fedora to you, sir. And one of the things that Nietzsche predicted was that secularism and atheism would, with the advent of technological progression, keep on going, keep on getting more and more popular until, eventually there came a stage where the majority of people, or at least it's like the majority of the culture was basically secular, which he was right about. And, if Nietzsche was like a modern day, like gay atheist, he'd probably just be like, well, more people will not believe in God, and that's good. But Nietzsche was not, retarded. Nietzsche thought about things on a more fundamental, deep level than that, because the question of does God exist is, secondary to the reality of the material world, in that it doesn't really matter if God exists or not. People believe that God exists. And that just, influences, everything that people have done through all of human history. You think about our architecture, the way we build things, our art, what we idolize, how we think. This is all influenced by the fundamental belief that God is real. And what Nietzsche says is dude, wouldn't it just be crazy if we just stopped believing that fundamental thing? What? That's mental. You can't. What? Whoa. Isn't that crazy? Do you not think that's a little bit crazy? What if there came a time where I said the N-word on camera on YouTube.com, and that Jewish bitch, Susan Wojcicki, heard me say it? The question then becomes, if everything we've done for all of history was under the assumption that God exists, what the fuck's next? What is the reason of, going to work, doing a little shitty 9 till 5, or, 8 till fucking 10, or whatever it was back then, you're shitty, and having your shitty life, and being upset all the time, if there isn't, something at the end of it? What is the point of doing any of that? And since Nietzsche believed that most people were, dumb, idiot, retarded people, they obviously wouldn't be able to answer that question alone. So you'd have, the vast majority of the population, just without a reason to fucking do any, what is the reason to exist, And that's how most people will think in the future, is what Nietzsche predicted, which is true. Why plan for the future if I'm just gonna die and be nothing? The only thing that matters is here and now. The only conclusion I can draw from the existence of the lack of existence of God is just consume. Just live in the moment, man. Just eat all the food and don't work on yourself. And it doesn't matter. What's the point? Just live in pleasure. Just put your face in the trough and just. And maybe there's something to obviously that. That's good enough for the majority of people. The majority of people, you tell them, hey, nothing you do matters. Just indulge in pleasure, and they're gonna be like, yeah, that's great, yeah. But for a thinking man, for someone who is for a master as opposed to a slave, just being told that, hey, you mean nothing, is wow. In the book, when Zarathustra comes down the mountain to talk to the people, what he tells them is that, to a man, an ape is something to be laughed at. But when the Superman comes, man will be something that is laughed at. But in actuality, who's better, the man or the ape? When an ape is, slave to its animal desires and has, no higher purpose in life but to, eat, fuck, and sleep, we excuse it because it's a fucking animal. It can't do better. So what the fuck is man's excuse? To go through life without a purpose, but to consume and have pleasure. That's what Nietzsche means when he says that an ape is higher than a man. Because an ape doesn't have a fucking choice. A man does. But we all just still choose to live like monkeys, ooh, ooh, I love sex, ooh, I like to not do anything, ooh. And therein comes the Superman. He is the master of his own desires. He is a free thinker. He is the only true master in a world of slaves. He is something that a thinking man should strive for. He is the person who looks life in the face, sees the nihilism in the eyes of life, and goes, yeah, well, I might not have an objective reason to live, but I'm so fucking awesome, I'm so powerful, that, yeah, I deserve to exist. I'm going to exist, and you know what? I'm going to thrive. He is able to bend the universe to his will, so the universe has no choice but to accept, okay, he exists, yes. Zarathustra lives alone in the mountains with two friends, okay? He lives with a snake, who is the wisest of all the animals, and he lives with the eagle, who is the proudest of all the animals, okay? He lives alone up here with purpose, in contrast to all of the people who live down below in the town, in nihilism. Another way to think about this is think about the etymology. I can't say that word.
Anatomy.
Think about the way these animals are built. The eagle is the highest of all the animals, and that represents pride. It lives flying in the mountains with Zarathustra, versus the snake, who represents knowledge, who is literally the lowest of all the animals. It, like, slithers across the ground, you know? It's on its belly at all times. And that's who lives on the ground? Of course, the people who live in nihilism. But in the book, these animals are not enemies like they'd be in real life. In real life, an eagle would pick up and eat a snake. In the book, these animals are friends. The snake is described as flying along with the eagle, not like in some sort of, like, you know, Chinese dragon sense, but literally the snake wraps itself around the eagle's neck and flies with it and lets the eagle carry it. And at any moment, the snake could just, like, squeeze and strangle the eagle to death. But if it did that, it'd be down on the ground again in nihilism. What this book therefore teaches us is the only way to escape the nihilism that knowledge brings us, the only way to escape the lack of meaning that knowing the truth about the universe brings us, is to use our own pride, is to use our own ego, to use our own ability to will ourselves into having purpose, to will our existence into having meaning. And that's what this book teaches us. It's still like shit though. I wouldn't read it.
You're gay.